Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined as usual by Riley Fessler. How are you, Riley?
Not too bad.
And by Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. You know, when I look at the platform that we use for recording this, at the beginning, as I start to talk, it says actual recording is of higher quality. And I think to myself, do I sound smarter? Is it changing my words? Like, how is this of a higher quality? But this is really AI at work. Whatever you hear out there, it's probably better than what it sounds like when I'm saying it. Anyway, why don't we do some news? Who's going to start?
I will, and let's hope that in the final recording, this news sounds better than it does when we recorded.
Yeah, would be actual news is a better. Well, anyway, no, not actual news is a better quality. Anyway, go ahead.
The U.S. Supreme Court declined to lift a judicial block on a Florida law that criminalizes undocumented immigrants entering the state, reinforcing a federal judge's ruling that the law likely violates the federal government's sole authority over immigration policy. The law, backed by Governor Ron DeSantis and modeled after Trump-era immigration stances, imposes harsh penalties but makes limited exceptions, prompting a class action lawsuit from the ACLU. Despite legal setbacks and a contempt finding against a top Florida official, the state continues to push for enforcement of the measure, highlighting its aggressive stance on immigration.
There is some speculation that the court, by giving more and more latitude to the federal government, is going to compensate for that to some degree by taking it away from state governments. While this may seem like a good thing in the case of this Florida law, when blue states start pushing back on some of the immigration policies of the Trump administration, it may not seem like such a good thing then. But, you know, among the things that the court actually seems to be thinking about, as opposed to reflexively doing to support Trump, this is one of the more interesting developments. Riley?
The Trump administration has imposed sanctions on Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur investigating human rights abuses in the Palestinian territories, accusing her of promoting false allegations of genocide and targeting U.S. and Israeli actions. This move comes amid heightened tensions over Israel's ongoing war in Gaza and follows failed efforts by the U.S. to remove Albanese from her post. Albanese has been outspoken in condemning Israeli military actions and supporting International Criminal Court charges against Israeli leaders, while also naming U.S. companies allegedly complicit in the conflict. Human rights groups have criticized the sanctions as an attempt to silence accountability and undermine international justice mechanisms.
Yeah, this is part of the Trump administration's war on truth. Francesca Albanese was not known to me until a few months ago, and then I started following some of her statements. And I encourage anybody to go onto social media and to listen to what she has to say. She is one of the clearest, most thoughtful, most ethical, most moral commentators on what's going on in Gaza that I can find anywhere. So, of course, rather than addressing the problem of Gaza, the inhumanity, the war crimes, the Trump administration wants to attack the person who is commenting on the problem, who is telling the truth about the problem. It's profoundly immoral. It's completely consistent with what everybody else is doing. And I only hope that you and others who are listening go, I'm going to go and find this woman. I'm going to go and listen to this woman. I'm going to follow this woman, because Francesca Albanese is an essential voice.
President Trump announced a sharp increase in tariffs on Brazilian imports, citing political reasons rather than trade imbalances, and criticizing Brazil's current government for its treatment of former President Jair Bolsonaro. The 50% tariff set to begin August 1st marks a break from Trump's previous tariff letters, which focus on trade issues, and follows broader tariff threats against BRICS countries. Brazilian President Lula da Silva pushed back strongly, calling Trump's actions a threat to global sovereignty amid ongoing tensions between the U.S. and emerging economies.
Trump's trade policies are bad. The tariffs are a mess. But this may be the worst of them, because What Trump is doing here is using trade as a weapon, and he's using it in support of a corrupt wannabe despot. This is a love letter from one corrupt wannabe despot to another corrupt wannabe despot at the expense of the U.S. relationship with Brazil, workers in America, workers in Brazil, and the global trading system. I just want to read you a brief post that I put up on Blue Sky this morning. I think the news media is failing in the coverage of Trump's tariffs. They are not just bad for our economy, certain to increase prices, cost us jobs, hurt our companies, and not achieve their stated goals. They are deranged. They are incoherent. They are the economic policy of a lunatic. They have already done irreparable damage to America's standing in the world and to the global trading system. They are almost certainly illegal. They reveal a complete absence of understanding of how markets or trade work. I get to the Brazil thing here, and I say the Brazil tariff created to support a corrupt wannabe despot by a corrupt wannabe despot is perhaps the worst. But it is hard to choose one that is the worst when so many are so bad. And that says nothing of how incompetent the administration has been in repairing the damage through deals. There have been no deals, effectively. Trump's tariffs make Smoot-Hawley, the failed tariff policy of 1930, look shrewd. They will be studied in universities. Not ours, because the subject will probably be banned by the Trump administration, but around the world as a case study in what happens when a raving moron seizes the reins of power of a country. I'm not exaggerating. I was a senior trade official in the United States government. All the other trade experts I know agree with me. Not some of them, all of them. For sure, my large, orange, Great Pyrenees dog, Grizzly, would do a better job managing U.S. trade policy than Trump, and he would not destroy U.S. democracy at the same time. The reason I don't pull punches there is I think that the coverage of all of this stuff has been ridiculously tame and make it sound like this is the kind of economic policy dispute people normally have. It's nuts. Did I make my point, Riley? Was that clear enough?
I think I got it.
You... Okay. Go. I'm sorry to beat around the bush. Okay, go ahead.
Next time I think you should be more direct, and you should.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna pull my punches. I'm not. We owe it to the listeners not to pull our punches. Go ahead.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Malaysia amid escalating tensions over the Ukraine war and confusion surrounding a recent pause in U.S. weapons shipments to Kyiv. The meeting followed President Trump's sharp criticism of Vladimir Putin and his decision to resume some defensive aid to Ukraine after expressing frustration over Russia's refusal to engage in peace talks. Rubio's Asia trip, originally aimed at strengthening regional alliances, was further complicated by Trump's announcement of impending tariffs on several ASEAN countries unless trade deals are reached. Despite limited prior focus on Asia, Rubio emphasized the region's strategic importance, declaring it central to the global future.
Who knows what's going on in these meetings? Because the Trump administration is giving multiple signals. On the one hand, it is cutting back on arms shipments to Ukraine. It has shifted sides. It is supporting Russia. Witkoff does go over there and kiss Putin's ass. On the other hand, Trump is saying he's frustrated with Putin. But Trump figured, Putin was his boy and was going to help him out. And that is clearly not going to happen here. The question, the big question here is whether Putin's intransigence will actually motivate Trump to do anything meaningful, like impose real sanctions on Russia, sanctions that hurt them, but their economy is vulnerable right now, or provide a real new weapons package to Ukraine. He should do both of those things. My bet is that he will try to come up short of doing either of those things, because at the end of the day, his loyalty, as we have known for a decade, is to Russia first, himself, his friends, and not to the country or our national interest.
California State Senator Scott Wiener is making a renewed push to regulate AI by reaching out directly to major tech firms like Google, Meta, and OpenAI, aiming to ease concerns after his stricter bill failed last year. His revisited proposal focuses on requiring only the most well-funded AI developers to report safety risks and incidents, while exempting startup and smaller players. Though he aligns the bill with expert recommendations and signals openness to industry feedback, it remains uncertain whether these changes will be enough to win over critics like Governor Gavin Newsom, who vetoed the previous version.
Look, AI is big, it's new, it touches all sorts of things. There are all sorts of regulatory issues that should come up around AI, and regulation does not impede innovation, as some of the advocates for sort of regulation-free policies argue. All businesses throughout our history have evolved with some kind of regulation because these things do not exist in our society, like trees that grow in nature. They exist in order to make our society better, and the government also has a responsibility to protect our rights, and to protect people from technologies and other kinds of developments that may hurt them. Having said that, I think that we are struggling to find a balance between what do we have to do to improve our ability to compete in this new era, and what do we have to do to ensure the new era serves our goals. That's natural at this point. If we're really interested in leading in AI, then I think we ought to let scientific study go on at our universities. I think we ought to start trying to attract great brains from around the world to study in our universities. We're not doing those things. That would help more with AI. From the point of view of AI companies, and of course we cover AI in two podcasts here, Still a Consciousness and the podcast we also do on AI, climate, and energy. And we talk to experts every single week on AI. I do think people are going to have to prepare for a period where the world is a crazy quilt of different regulatory regimes at the state level, at the federal level, at the regional level, at the international level. And until these get harmonized, it is going to be hard for some of these projects to hit scale. The faster we can get to harmonization, the faster there can be the kind of growth that will be a good thing. But let's not leap headlong into this. There are real privacy risks. There are real risks of dislocations in our society. There are real risks, as we saw earlier this week with the Grok AI product created by Musk, that these things go off or have racism embedded in them, as Mecha Hitler, who manifested himself from the Grok product, demonstrates. So there are a lot of things to worry about here, but good policy begins with good policy debates. And I think by and large, that's what's happening. And that's it. That's our last story for today. Sorry, by the way, if there was background noise here. There seems to be some construction outside my office. And we'll be back tomorrow for yet another episode of DSR Daily. If you didn't hear Deep State Radio from yesterday with Max Boot, Ed Luce, and Rosa Brooks, I really encourage you to do it. We talk about Trump foreign policy from a perspective of, what can we see about it? What conclusions can we draw at this point? It's a discussion you haven't heard elsewhere. I think you need to hear it. Later today, we'll be doing DSR's Words Matter with Norm Ornstein, which is always therapeutic, not just for me, but for our listeners. So go and listen to that. There's a new Still Consciousness coming your way tomorrow, and a new Need to Know. So there's a lot of good stuff coming down the pike. Please join us for that. And if you like what we're doing, go to the DSRnetwork.com, click on membership, and for less than the price of a latte per month, you can help support what we're doing, and we'd be real grateful. Until then, thank you, Riley. Thank you, Minna. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.